Now, earlier in the day, we saw a bit of a shift in terms of the Liberal Party's position when it comes to Indigenous affairs, particularly the potential for a future referendum. I know the opposition leader with you on our Sunday Agenda program at the beginning of last month committed to having a second referendum, but that's not going to happen.
It's out the window. Referendums for constitutional recognition appears dead for potentially decades. We certainly know a voice is dead, so you may recall Peter Dutton on Sunday Agenda on September 3 saying he'd hold a second referendum on constitutional recognition for Aboriginal people if the voice referendum was lost. Mr Dutton saying this gave some waverers a chance to say no, vote no, knowing that constitutional recognition could come up again. But as I say, he's made it clear today that's off the table. Would you have another referendum for constitutional recognition in that term?
We went to the last election and a number of elections before that with that as our policy, and that will be our policy going into the next election as well.
So you'd hold another referendum?
I believe very strongly, yes, I believe very strongly that it is the right thing to do. All of our policy, obviously, as I said on Saturday night, is going to be reviewed in the process that Karen and Jacinta will lead now. I think that's important, but I think it's clear that the Australian public is probably over the referendum process for some time.
The Leader of the Opposition said during this process in September, we went to the last election and a number of elections before that with that as our policy, and that will be our policy going into the next and again.
Order.
I think it's right and respectful to recognise Indigenous Australians in the Constitution. Just think about that. They went to a number of elections with this as a promise. If only they'd been elected in 2016 and 2019. The Leader of the Opposition has now taken the next step. He's now opposing himself.
So in the wake of the embarrassing defeat, that gave the PM a comeback at the opposition leader. Peter Dutton's also been calling in the wake of that referendum result for an audit of spending on Aboriginal people from governments. I put to Micaiah Cash, his Deputy Senate Leader, yesterday, why didn't they do that sort of audit in government? They were in charge of the money. Peter Dutton was also asked about it today.
What we do need to do is look at having an audit into where the money goes, because you can't spend, as a government, $30 billion a year, have it funnelled out of Canberra, as Peter says.
You were in government for 9 years, so where was the audit then?
We never had Jacinta Nampijinpa Price. For the first time in Australia's history, we have someone of lived experience fronting Australia and being able to carry the conversation. And quite frankly, we now need to back Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price in.
Let me tell you, there are not billions of dollars being spent on people in town camps or who are living in drains at the moment. So there's something going wrong between where the cheque is written in Canberra and where the cents start to drip out in Alice Springs. The Prime Minister says he doesn't believe in a Royal Commission, doesn't believe in an audit, then we'll continue to repeat the same mistakes of the past.
Oh, no Jacinta Price then, but they did have Ken White. It's been obvious for months that this voice was going down. So why didn't Anthony Albanese back out? I think this is why.
Climate change is the great moral challenge of our generation.
The implementation of a carbon pollution reduction scheme in Australia will be delayed.
The simple answer is the PM didn't want to be like Kevin Rudd with the emissions trading scheme. He said it was the number one issue of our time, the number one policy, and then said he was abandoning it. So instead, Anthony Albanese's had to wear a devastating loss, and so have the Aboriginal leaders who push the voice forward, Kieran.
Yes, as a veteran observer of politics said to me earlier off air, he said, well, sometimes in politics there's no good answer. So the Prime Minister thinking that the worst option would be to throw in the towel and end up looking like Kevin Rudd. So he had to take the second worst option, and that is a big loss.
And imagine the reaction from the left of the Labor Party and his base if he abandoned the idea.
Yeah.
So I think that the PM's always had this view that he's got the right sorted with the AUKUS nuclear submarines agreement with the US and the left sorted with the voice. Well, now the voice has gone down, so he'll have to find something else if he wants to keep the base happy.
Very good comparison, though, with that Rudd period, because that was basically the start of the end for him.